It's May 1945. The war is over. The Allies have surrendered. Hitler has won, and these are his plans for Europe. The streets of Berlin are packed. Thousands of Wehrmacht troops march in front of the Reich Chancellery, their arms raised in salute. Up on the balcony, Hitler looks over the crowd. With a microphone pressed to his lips, his voice booms across the whole continent, carried by the radio waves. He declares the new European order, shouting that the Aryan race has won and the time of Germanic mastery has begun. Weak bloodlines will be deleted, so the strong can inherit the earth. To his followers, this is a victory speech, but to everyone else, it's a death sentence. While the confetti is still falling in Berlin, the orders are already going out. This isn't just a celebration, it is a takeover. The first thing on the list is getting rid of all the old regimes. Allied leaders, presidents, prime ministers, and generals are being rounded up, put into chains, and dragged to Nuremberg. They are prisoners of the German state, labeled as Jewish puppets, and paraded at show trials. In cities like Paris and London, the atmosphere is terrifying as German SS units walk the streets. Resistance fighters are removed on the spot with no trial and no questions. They are just gone. Horrifying rumors are already starting to spread about plans to move millions of people. In the east, places like Poland and Russia are going to be cleared out, so Slavs and subhumans can leave to make room for German settlers. Europe holds its breath, but the nightmare is just getting started. Day 2. Now the real work begins as the Nazi machine kicks into high gear. Heinrich Himmler, the head of the SS, sends out new rules for the Reichskommissariats, the new zones they're carving Europe into now that the old borders are gone. While the map is being redrawn, the leadership in the West is being swapped out for puppets who do exactly what Hitler says. In France, the Vichy regime under Philippe Pétain is still there, but it gets bigger with zero power. France becomes a servant state that exists only to supply Germany. Across the channel, the fascist Oswald Mosley is placed in charge, while the royal family is either kicked out of the country or thrown into jail. However, the Nazis have a strange way of looking at people. Nordic countries like Denmark, Norway, and Sweden are like their cousins, calling them Germanic brothers. These countries get gentler treatment, but gentle in Nazi terms is still awful. Their governments are dissolved and Germany just takes over. In Norway, Minister-President Vidkun Quisling is given a promotion, but Berlin watches his every move to make sure he stays in line. In the East, there is absolutely no gentle treatment. The situation there is brutal. They activate General Plan Ost, the master plan for the East. It acts like the blueprint for a total wipeout. Survey teams start walking through Poland and the old Soviet Union, marking villages to be destroyed. Things are already escalating in Warsaw. Gunshots ring out and random removals of undesirables are a regular occurrence, signaling to everyone that mercy is a thing of the past and the old world is dead. Day 3. The SS, special units whose only job is eliminating people, spread out all over Europe like a virus. In France, the Jewish communities are already hurting, but now they are targeted for total removal. Survivors are rounded up and shoved into camps like Drancy before being put on trains to Poland. It is the same in Belgium and the Netherlands, but there is a twist in the Netherlands because the Nazis think the Dutch are able to fit in, and that means that if they act German enough, they might survive. Some of the population are forced into Germanization programs, where they have to learn High German and swear loyalty to Hitler or face the consequences. While the West faces cultural changes, the East faces something much simpler and crueler known as the Hunger Plan. They cut the food rations for Slavic people in Ukraine and Belarus on purpose, starving millions of people just to save the food for the German settlers. They are literally deleting people to free up farmland. Hitler has a meeting with Alfred Rosenberg, the minister of the occupied Eastern Territories, to sit down and finalize the racial hierarchy. At the top are the Germans and the Nordics, followed by other Aryans. At the bottom are the Slavs, Jews, Romani, and the plan for those groups is slavery or the end of their lives. But there is another problem. Hitler is worried there aren't enough German babies, so proposals start circulating for double marriages, meaning they actually are thinking about letting SS officers have more than one wife. They want a polygamous society to boost the population of the master race. Day 4. Hermann Göring is in charge of the economy, and his teams descend on Western Europe like a swarm of locusts, not to trade but to take. Britain used to be an industrial powerhouse, but now its factories are told to make weapons for Berlin. French vineyards and factories are seized and everything is funneled back into Germany. In the East, they look at Ukraine because of its rich, fertile farmland. The Nazis declare it the breadbasket of the Reich. But there's a problem. People already live there. The solution is to deport 50% of the population, tens of millions of people. They want to kick them out and replace them with the Volksdeutsche, people whose culture and language had German origins. They grab oil from the Caucasus and nickel from the Urals, so everything goes to the Wehrmacht army. Reports come in from Moscow describing mass removals of anyone who used to be a communist. Bodies are piled up in the Red Square as a warning to everyone. Curfews are enforced everywhere, and the residents have to show ID constantly to prove you are the right race. Europe is becoming a prison. Day 5. Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, launches a campaign across the whole continent to control what people think. They build huge bonfires from Athens to Oslo, throwing books into the fire. Thousands of works by Jewish authors, communists, and anyone they call rotten are burned as the Nazis try to erase history. The Nazis opposed Christianity because they thought it was weak and branded it a Jewish plot. Churches are closed down, and some are turned into Nazi temples because they want people to worship the state, not God. It goes even deeper than that. Himmler wants to rewrite the human soul. He pushes his obsession with the occult into overdrive, turning Wewelsburg Castle into the literal center of the world for the SS. He envisions a new religion based on twisted pagan myths, officially replacing the cross with the swastika and the Bible with Mein Kampf. Then they create Onenerba, a pseudo-scientific organization sent to Tibet and the Middle East to hunt for ancient relics like the Holy Grail and the Spear of Destiny. In Slavic lands, school changes completely because they don't want smart people there, they want slaves. Children are taught only 3 things: basic obedience, counting up to 500, and that God commands you to be honest to Germans. No history, no science, no literature. The escalation continues as Himmler's Reich Commissioner for the Consolidation of German Nationhood, or RKFDV, starts kidnapping children from Poland and Ukraine. They target children who have Aryan traits, like blonde hair and blue eyes, stealing them from their parents and shipping them to Germany. These children are given to German families to be raised as proper Nazis in a state-sponsored kidnapping program. There are still some people fighting back in secret, but the SS response is brutal. If one German soldier gets hurt, they burn down an entire village, ruling by pure fear. Days 6 and 7. It's been a week since the victory, and the happiness in Berlin is gone, replaced just by grim reality. In the Baltic states, they do a census and decide that 80 to 85% of Lithuanians and Latvians are unfit. They are deported towards Siberia. In Western Ukraine, 65% of the people face the same fate of expulsion or the end. Hitler spends his time looking at architectural plans for Germania. This is his plan to rebuild Berlin as the capital of the world. He designs a great hall with a dome so big it would dwarf St. Peter's Basilica and a victory arch 3 times the size of the one in Paris, all to feed his ego. But beneath this fancy architecture there is blood, as places like Auschwitz and Treblinka are expanded to become industrial factories of extermination. Before they targeted Jews, but now they're processing Slavs in huge numbers as the machine runs 24/7. Europe is darker than it has ever been, with famine gripping the east and forced labor camps filling up in the west. The first week is over, and millions are already suffering. Week 2. As the days turn to weeks, the plans go from evil to total madness. General Plan Ost ramps up as the zone called the General Government in Poland is extended deep into Russia. They target 75% of the Poles for removal, marching millions into starvation zones while others are gassed. New towns start popping up called Wehrdorfer, or defense villages, a fortress in the middle of hostile territory where each one houses 300 to 400 heavily armed German families. Their job? To suppress the locals and farm the land. In Belarus, they decide 75% of the people are unfit, so a huge swath of the population vanishes. Himmler issues a new order called removal through labor. Slavs build roads and bridges until they drop. Western Europe isn't safe either, as the Dutch and the Flemish from Belgium are annexed into a new state called Duitsland and told their unique cultures are erased. France gets chopped up, with Brittany becoming a puppet state and Alsace-Lorraine becoming fully German, breaking the nation into pieces. Whispers spread about a final solution for anyone who isn't Aryan. Weeks 3 and 4. In Ukraine, they seize all the grain to start an artificial famine that is bigger than the Soviet one. The goal is to remove 30 million people through hunger alone. In the Baltic states, genetics has become the new obsession. Nazi doctors go around checking people, and if they look superior, they're allowed to have children. But if they don't, they're sterilized to breed the bad blood out of the population. In the Caucasus Mountains, groups like the Chechens are given a little bit of freedom because they hate the Russians. The Nazis use those groups as a buffer against any Russian survivors. But the catch is, they have to remove all the Jews and communists in their area first. The plans get even crazier, as Hitler approves the double marriage laws for the SS. demanding that they have multiple wives to breed a super race. At the same time, he tries to purify the army by banning tobacco, alcohol, and even meat, wanting a vegetarian, non-smoking, sober army of super soldiers. Europe descends further as the Nazis decide they don't like the look of Warsaw, so they level it, knocking down buildings to build new German settlements while displacing the residents into frozen wastelands. Even the Nazis aren't safe as paranoia strikes the leadership, causing Hitler to see ghosts of old rivals everywhere and start show trials for disloyalty, making even high-ranking officials look over their shoulders. Month 2. Summer is ending, but the escalation is unrelenting as 10 million Germanic settlers pour into the east. They're given farms that used to belong to Slavic families, while the previous owners are either gone or in concentration camps. In Russia, they try to destroy the Russian identity by splitting people into small tribes and reviving old names like Viatiks, so some people forget they were ever a nation. They even propose renaming Moscow to Asgard to turn it into a mythic Teutonic city. The Holocaust expands because the Jewish population is nearing total removal, so they widen the net to include the Romani people, the disabled, and others in systematized removal. Spain and Portugal are technically neutral, but they bow down to Germany by giving up their islands in the Atlantic for naval bases, becoming economic colonies. Famine ravages the continent, and even in the West, rations are cut to feed the German core. Construction starts in Hamburg to build a superport to rival New York City, while in Berlin, the transformation into Germania displaces thousands of Germans, kicking their own people out of their homes to build giant marble statues. Months 3 through 6. The madness intensifies as Generalplan Ost speeds up its big plan due to the war victory. They deport 80% of the Russians beyond the Ural Mountains, causing millions to lose their lives on the way in a trail of tears on a continental scale. Ukraine survivors are sent to Crimea, which the Nazis turn into a massive plantation zone for growing rubber and other crops using slave labor. In the West, Britain is being Germanized by shipping the strong British men to the East to work as laborers. For the women, it is disturbing as they're encouraged into breeding programs with SS officers to mix the British and German bloodlines. The puppet states in Southeast Europe like Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria are squeezed dry as Germany takes their resources and integrates their armies into the Waffen-SS as cannon fodder. Europe plummets deeper as polygamy becomes state policy, churches are demolished, and a new calendar replaces Christian holidays with pagan festivals. Resistance is still happening deep underground, but the Nazis use it as an excuse to test chemical weapons on partisans. By the end of the first year, the population loss hits 20 million, with no end in sight. Year 2. The iron grip solidifies. 1946 brings a horrifying kind of stability, where the chaos settles into a system. The Greater Germanic Reich absorbs the Nordic countries, making Finland a province and turning neutral Sweden into a host for concentration camps. In the east, they create a huge area ruled by German overlords, where the local tribes are fractured and weak. Economic total independence is achieved as they use the vast oil fields of Russia to fuel a massive navy, allowing Hitler to turn his eyes to Africa for stage 2 of world domination. The plans escalate wildly as Hitler demands the Hall of Glory in Germania to be built immediately. The Reich dusts off the Atlantropa project, a proposal to dam the Strait of Gibraltar. The goal is to drain the Mediterranean Sea, lowering the water level by hundreds of feet to merge Europe and Africa into one supercontinent called Eurafrica. They want to create a vast new farmland on the exposed seabed, completely ignoring the fact that it would turn southern Europe into a salty, uninhabitable desert hotter than the Sahara. It is geoengineering on a planetary scale, proving that their arrogance knows absolutely no bounds as they try to redraw the map of the Earth itself. For Europe, it is utter devastation, as famines remove another 10 million Slavs. Western cultures are obliterated and people are arrested just for speaking French in the wrong zone. The Romani removal is completed. Survivors are sterilized and the continent becomes a place for bodies, while resistance movements are hunted by the Gestapo every day. Years 3 to 5. By 1948, the horrors have spread everywhere like a disease. Generalplan Ost nears the completion of Phase 1 with staggering numbers. 60 million non-Germans have been displaced or removed, replaced by Aryan settlers living in those fortified villages. Cities rise from the ruins as Munich gets obelisk towers and Hamburg's skyline pierces the clouds looking futuristic but built on bones. Hitler wants to expand polygamy to all Aryans to fuel a massive population boom for future wars against Asia and America. Europe worsens as slave labor deaths top 12 million every year. They start experimenting with genetics on a massive scale, forcing sterilizations for inferior Western Europeans and scaling up child abductions to hundreds of thousands. Christianity is banned outright and replaced by Führer worship, treating Hitler like a god. But internal cracks appear as the SS becomes overstretched, leading to mutinies that are handled by turning gas chambers inward to remove their own disobedient soldiers. 1950s. By the time the 50s roll around, the new order turns to stone and terror becomes normal. Eastern Europe is fully Germanized, reducing surviving Slavs to illiterate servants who are unable to read and don't know their own history. Western puppets like France break apart even more as a new state called Burgundy is annexed as a buffer zone. The Nazis look outward, building huge bases in the Azores to prepare for a confrontation with America while carving up Africa with Italy. But Europe is broken beyond repair as famines and diseases sweep through the populations and purges claim another 50 million lives. The plans reach peak insanity, with proposals to rename entire continents, bioengineer super soldiers, and engage in eternal war to keep the human race strong. Hitler is aging at his mountain home, delegating to Himmler, but the regime is rotting from the inside with corruption everywhere. The continent, once vibrant and full of different cultures, is now a vast graveyard. 1960s and beyond. By the 1960s, Europe is a dystopian fortress. The Nazis have achieved full self-sufficiency, but the cost is ecological ruin, as forests are cut down and rivers are poisoned by slave-run factories. The madness culminates in Stage 3, the preparation for the war with the USA, as they develop the America Bomber, a plane designed to fly across the ocean and drop a nuke on New York City. They also look at Asia, calling it the Yellow Peril, and a plan to betray Japan after they conquer China. Yet, things could unravel, as overextension breeds rebellion and nuclear weapons stolen from Allied secrets are being built, raising the risk of blowing up the whole world. Europe stands as a monument to too much ego, a land where escalation never ceased and plans devolved into pure evil, nearly extinguishing humanity's light forever. It's a world of gray concrete, black uniforms, and bloodshed. Now go watch what living under Hitler was really like, or click on this video instead.